All right, good morning and welcome back. Today we're going to continue talking about triangles and proportions and how we can solve for missing element on the triangle. So if we look here at this first one, we're asked to find x, so x over here, the long side, and we see that the side labeled 24 yards and the side labeled x are parallel. Now if these two sides there, right here, and here, if they are parallel, then that tells us we know already that this angle is the same. We also then would know that this angle on the inside, right there, those two angles would match because they're parallel. So if we think about it, let me draw a picture quick. Cut by a transversal, so that angle and that angle are what we call corresponding angles, so they're congruent. Okay, and likewise we'd have another one over here. So from there we can determine that these two triangles are similar. Now what we have to do is set up and solve. So we want to compare like to like. So if I start with x over 24, if I do that, then if we think about it, it's the long side over 24. Now, if I'm going to do that, I also need to know, so x is part of the big triangle. Now for the small triangle, we have 18 as a side length here. For the big triangle, though, that 18 would be comparable to this whole side. So 18 and 12, we have to add those two together, and we'll get 30. Okay. So now, from here, we can simply cross multiply. Oops. So if we cross multiply, we'll be left with 18x equals 720. From here, we can just divide by 18, and we get x to equal 40. And technically, if we want to label that, we should put 40 yards. All right, so our next one. This one's slightly different, but it says find x, both the large triangle and the small triangle are an isosceles triangle. So it also says the non-congruent side of the large triangle is the 32, and the non-congruent side of the small triangle is the x. Meaning, I know that this and this are the same. So if these two are congruent to each other, and then I also know that this length has to be 40 just like on the other side, which tells us that right here is congruent. And if we compare it, since they both have this same angle here, we also know that would be a third angle. So at this point, we can determine that these two are similar. Now, once again, we don't really need all that information we just drew on there. All we need to do is compare like and like. So if we look here, I'll start with the small triangle. If I could do x over 16, and keep in mind there's multiple ways you can set these up. Okay, this isn't the only way to do it. If I do x over 16, keeping in mind that this side is also 16 here, so x over 16, that would equal 32 over 40. At this point, we could cross multiply. We're going to have 40x. 32 times 16 gives us 384. And if you can't do that one in your head, that's totally fine. Just solve it using a calculator. Okay, divided by 40, divided by 40. Now this one, it's not going to come out evenly, but that's okay. Decimals are still real numbers. So 384 divided by 40. Oops, I think I did that wrong. 384 divided by 40. And we get 9.6 as our answer. All right, our next example. Here it is already set up for us. These marks, these parallel sides, allow us to know that these two triangles are going to be similar, because both these two angles would have to match up with these two. Now at this point, let's always think of it as the smaller triangle and then the larger triangle. So if I was going to set this up, I like to have x here as my first x over 5. Now x matches up with the 15, so that has to go on top. Be careful, the 5 does not match up with 10. The 5 would match up with this whole length. So 5 plus 10 gives us 15 as well. Okay, at this point, we can cross multiply again. So 15x equals 75, divide by 15, and we'll get x equals 5, which makes sense because, as you may have noticed, once we said this was 15, if that was 15 and 15, those are the same, so it makes sense that it'd be 5 and 5. All right, what would x need to be if these two triangles are going to be similar? Looks like I forgot to type the rest of that. But so if the two triangles are similar. So we have our marks. We know they're similar. Now we have a 10 and an x. So from here, I like to keep the x on top. So if I put x over 10, those ones matched up. Now x over 10, the x would match up with the 12 over 6. Okay, from here, we cross multiply, we'll get 6x equals 120. Divide by 6, we get x to equal 20. Now keep in mind, if you had chose to set it up a different way, you also could have done it x over 12 and stuck just to the big triangle. If you did x over 12, you would have the x line up with the 10 over 6. The reason x and 10 go together, x is in between the 1 and 2, 10 is in between the 1 and 2 marks. From here, we would cross multiply. We'd still get 6x equals 120. So no matter which way you solve it, you still get the same answer. All right, a couple more. So this next one here, E, it's asking us once again, here's the whole triangle, the big one, the small one. Now, this time it's a little bit more difficult, okay? If we think about this big triangle, this side, we can't just deal with the x part. We need to deal with the whole triangle. So that side would be 8 plus x. And on the big triangle, that's over 15. Now we can set that equal to 8 over 5. So the small triangle has 8 and 5. The big triangle is 8 plus x, 15. And from here we can cross multiply. 8 times 15 gives us 120. That equals 5 times the quantity 8 plus x. So 120 would equal 40 plus 5x. We subtract the 40. Divide by 5, and we will get x to equal 16. All right, just about done. We got 2 problems left here. Now if we look here at these ones, on this first problem, once again, this time we're dealing just with the outsides of the triangle, but we're doing the same approach. Okay, now, whenever we have these two lines that are parallel, we know that it's going to be proportional along the outside here. Meaning, if I think about this, 2 over 6, whatever that ratio is, will be comparable to the x over 9. So 2 over 6 equals x over 9. We cross multiply. 6x will equal 18. We can divide. We get x equals 3. Hopefully that makes sense to you, because 3 is a third of 9. 2 is a third of 6. Okay, our final one over here then. Same approach here. X over 12 equals x plus 1 over 15. Now this one may be a little more difficult to solve. Cross multiply, we get 15x equals, remember that 12 is going to multiply by that whole quantity. So 12x plus 12. We subtract the 12x. We get 3x equals 12, so x will equal 4. So right here, it'd be like 4 over 12, which is 1/3. On this side, 4 plus 1 gives us 5 over 15, which is also 1/3. And we are done. So that's all for today. Go ahead. There's a small It's Learning assignment. I think it's 6 questions. Go ahead and get that done. And if you have any questions, please send me a message, send me an email, and I'll see you guys soon. Have a great day.